Across the edge of the known galaxy, a dark war had consumed everything that once held light. The stars that once gave life to many worlds were now silent. They shone weakly behind curtains of smoke and broken metal. Thousands of ships drifted near the shattered moon of Evelon, where the last survivors of the Allied fleet gathered. Among them was Captain Reiner of the Thalkir Navy, standing inside the cracked bridge of his ship, the Silver Crest. His eyes were fixed on the endless black ahead. He had seen too many battles, too many defeats. And now he was seeing the end of everything he had ever known. The Voidborn had come without warning. They were creatures of endless hunger, born from the dark between galaxies. No one knew what they wanted. They spoke no language, sent no messages, and destroyed every colony, city, and ship they found. The combined fleets of 20 races had stood against them, and every single one had fallen. Now, only a handful of ships remained, damaged and out of power, waiting for the end. Reiner turned to his first officer, a tall being with silver eyes named Varen. "How many ships are still responding?" Reiner asked. His voice was calm, but his heart was heavy. 23, sir," Varen answered. "But only 7 can still move. The rest have lost engines or power cores. The med ships are full. We have no more supplies, no energy left for shields. If the Voidborn attack again, we will not last long." Reiner looked around the bridge. The air smelled of burnt circuits and metal. Every crew member worked quietly, trying to keep the ship alive. No one spoke of victory anymore. They only hoped for one more hour of life. "Any word from the Council?" Reiner asked. "None," Varen said. "Their last transmission was from the fall of the Velen sector. After that, silence." Reiner sighed and looked at the screen before him. Outside, the broken remains of ships floated like ghosts. The stars were dim. The once strong Allied fleet now looked like a graveyard. Somewhere beyond the black, the Voidborn gathered for their final strike. "Prepare to send a message," Reiner said softly. Varen hesitated. "A message, sir? To whom?" "To anyone," Reiner replied. "Anyone who might still hear." The communication officer, a small being with glowing scales, nodded and began typing on a cracked console. The message was short and simple. It called for help. It said that the last fleet of the Allied worlds was still fighting, even when hope was gone. It asked that someone remember them when they were gone. The signal spread across the stars, weak and broken. But it was all they could do. When the message ended, silence filled the bridge again. Outside, space stretched forever. Reiner looked at the crew and forced a small smile. "You have served with honor," he said. "Whatever comes now, know that you did not run." Varen nodded. "It has been an honor, Captain." Hours passed. The wounded ships drifted slowly. Some of the crew prayed to their homeworld spirits. Some just stared at the stars. A few slept, too tired to care about what was coming. Reiner stayed awake, watching the sensors. Each beep of the machine reminded him how little time they had. Suddenly, the sensor alarm blinked. The officer raised his head, confused. "Captain," he said, "we are picking up movement." Reiner stood quickly. "Voidborn?" "I am not sure," the officer said. "The signal is strange. It is not like theirs." Reiner leaned closer. The screen showed a faint energy signature moving through the debris field. It was small, unstable, and old. The reading was unlike any of the known fleets. For a moment, Reiner hoped it might be a surviving ally. "Can you identify the signal?" Reiner asked. "Trying," said the officer. His fingers danced across the controls. "The pattern is strange. It repeats in intervals. Wait, this is ancient code, very old. I have never seen it before." Reiner frowned. "Can you translate it?" The officer shook his head. "Our system does not recognize it. It is not from any of our known races." The bridge fell silent. Everyone stared at the flickering light on the screen. It was so faint that it could vanish at any moment, yet it kept repeating, steady and strong. Reiner ordered the signal to be recorded and amplified. The sound that came through the speakers was a sequence of sharp tones, rhythmic and constant. Varen turned to Renar. What do you think it is? I do not know, Renar said quietly. But it is coming from deep space, beyond the field. Ow. The small hope that sparkled in his chest was quickly drowned by logic. There was no one left out there. Every known world had fallen. The signal was probably a lost echo from some ancient battle. Still, he could not look away. It was like a whisper calling across the void. Hours turned into another day. The signal continued to pulse, never changing. Engineers worked to track it, but the range was far. They did not have the power to follow. Renar gave the order to move closer, even though it would drain the last of their energy. He knew it was a foolish choice, but it was better than waiting for death, as the silver crest drifted toward the source. The crew felt a strange energy in the air. The lights on the bridge flickered. The sensors began to fail, showing ghost readings. Something was interfering with their systems. Captain Veron said, "This energy field is strong. We should stop." Renner shook his head. "No, keep going. If this is a trap, then we face it. If it is not, then maybe we will find something worth dying for." The ship trembled as it passed through a thin mist of blue light. Beyond it lay an open region of empty space. The signal was now stronger, almost deafening. The energy readings jumped higher than anything they had seen before, and then the signal stopped. Everyone froze. The screen went blank. The silence was heavy. Renair looked around the bridge. "What happened?" he asked. "No idea," the officer said. The source vanished. It was right in front of us. Renair stepped closer to the window. The stars looked the same as before, endless and distant. Nothing moved. Then, slowly, a shadow began to appear. At first it was just a shimmer, a distortion like heat waves. Then it became clearer. A massive shape, dark and smooth, emerged from the black. It was bigger than any ship Renar had ever seen. Its surface was covered in strange lines that glowed faintly. The sensors struggled to scan it. "Reading impossible mass," said the officer. "It is not a station. It is moving under its own power," Farron whispered. "Could it be one of the ancient human ships?" Renar turned sharply. "That is impossible. The humans are gone. They vanished centuries ago." Still, Varen said, "The signal we tracked used ancient human code." The crew exchanged uneasy looks. No one spoke for several seconds. The ship ahead of them drifted slowly, quiet and proud. It carried a presence unlike any other. Even damaged and old, it looked alive. Renar felt his hands shake. He had heard the stories. Every species had. The tales of humanity were told like myths. They said humans were the first explorers of the stars, the first to build ships that could cross galaxies. They said humans were fierce and fearless, that they faced enemies larger than themselves and still won. But they had disappeared long ago, vanishing after the Great Silence. Most believed they had destroyed themselves. Others said they had gone beyond the galaxy. None believed they would return, and yet here it was. A ship, massive and real, floating before them. Renar swallowed hard. "Open a channel," he ordered. The communication officer hesitated. "Sir, what frequency?" "All of them," Renar said. "If someone is alive on that ship, they will hear us." Static filled the speakers. Then a voice spoke. It was clear, steady, and human. "This is Captain Mira of the Terran warship Valiant," the voice said. "Identify yourselves." Every person on the bridge froze. The words were calm, but carried power. The sound of that voice made every heart beat faster. Renar could not believe what he was hearing. "This is Captain Renar of the Thalkir ship Silver Crest," he said, his voice shaking. "We are the last of the Allied fleet. We thought the humans were gone." The voice answered with quiet confidence. "We were never gone, Captain. We were fighting a war you could not see." Renar felt his throat tighten. "The Voidborn have taken the galaxy. We have no hope left." The voice paused for a second, then replied, "Then let us bring it back." The bridge erupted in whispers. The crew looked at one another in disbelief. The humans had returned. Against all reason, against all time, they had come back. Renner stared at the massive ship outside. The Valiant's hull lights slowly brightened, forming patterns like constellations. It looked like a sleeping giant waking up. He whispered to himself, "Maybe the stars are not done with us yet." Far away, on the edge of their sensors, the Voidborn began to move again. Their black shapes gathered, sensing something new. The final battle was coming. But for the first time in a long while, Renard did not feel fear. He felt something else: hope. The stars that had been filled with despair now held a spark of light once more. The great ship, Valiant, floated like a shadow among the stars. Its hull reflected the light of broken suns, showing marks of battles long past. The survivors of the Allied fleet stared in silence, still trying to believe what they saw. After centuries of legends and forgotten stories, a human warship had returned to the galaxy. Captain Renard stood on the bridge of the Silver Crest, watching the Valiant on the main screen. The human ship was huge, much larger than any known design. Its surface shimmered with blue light that moved across its armor like living fire. The sensors still could not understand how it worked. It was made from materials the Allied scientists had never seen before. Renard's first officer, Varen, kept his eyes fixed on the readings. "Sir, the power level is beyond anything we have recorded. I believe that ship could fight an entire fleet alone."
Renard nodded slowly.
If the legends are true, that is exactly what they were built to do. The bridge crew listened in silence. Everyone knew the stories of human warships. They were said to carry weapons strong enough to break moons, engines fast enough to cross a galaxy in days. But none of them had expected to ever see one again. A voice broke the silence over the comms. It was Captain Mira from the Valiant. Her voice was calm and steady. "Allied fleet, your situation has been noted. We are here to assist. Send us full tactical data on enemy strength and location," Renard replied at once. "Captain Mira, we have little left to give. Our fleet is broken, our weapons are nearly gone, and the Voidborn control most sectors. They will come soon." Mira's voice held no fear. "Then we will face them together. Stand by and prepare to transfer your wounded to our med bays. Valiant has enough room to treat thousands." The crew on the Silver Crest could hardly believe her words. Their med ships were full, and they had been watching people die for days. Now a human ship was offering help as if it were a simple matter. Renard gave the order. Shuttles began to move between the damaged ships and the Valiant. The human vessel opened hangars larger than entire stations. The wounded were carried inside, and those who returned spoke of wonders. They said the humans used machines that healed with light and sound. They said the medics spoke gently, their faces hidden behind smooth helmets. None of them seemed afraid of the Voidborn. Varen turned to Renard. "They act like they have already seen all this before." Renard watched the Valiant on the screen. "Maybe they have." Hours passed. The fleet slowly gathered near the human ship, forming a circle of broken vessels around the Valiant's shining hull. The air of despair that had filled every ship began to fade. For the first time in months, the survivors spoke with hope. Some said humanity had returned to save the galaxy. Others said the Valiant was the last ship of an ancient army. When Renard finally spoke to Captain Mira again, he asked what many were thinking. "Where have you been all these years?" Every world thought the humans were gone. Mira's image appeared on the screen. She wore a dark uniform with a silver crest on her chest. Her eyes were calm, but her voice carried a weight that made everyone listen. "Humanity did not fall," she said. "We left this part of the galaxy long ago. The wars here had no end, and our leaders decided to move beyond the known stars. We built colonies in the outer dark, far past the galactic rim. We have been fighting there for generations," Renard asked softly. "Fighting what?" Mira looked away for a moment before answering. "Creatures like the Voidborn. We call them the Endless Hunger. They rise in every corner of the universe. We have been holding them back for centuries. When your signal reached us, we came as soon as we could." Renard's crew exchanged stunned looks. The humans had not been destroyed. They had been protecting the galaxy from a far greater threat. Their silence was not because they had vanished, but because they had been busy fighting in the dark beyond. Before Renard could respond, The alarm sounded. The sensors detected movement on the far edge of the system. A large fleet was approaching. The Voidborn had found them. Varen's voice shook. "They are coming, sir. Hundreds of ships, maybe thousands." Renner turned to the screen and opened the channel. "Captain Mira, the Voidborn are here. We cannot stop them." Her reply came without hesitation. "You will not need to. Power down your weapons and fall back behind us." Renar frowned. "Captain, they will destroy us if we do nothing." Mira's tone stayed firm. "Do as I say, Captain Renner. The Valiant will handle this." Reluctantly, Renner gave the order. The surviving ships withdrew behind the human warship. The Valiant moved forward alone. Its engines glowed with blue fire as energy waves rippled across its hull. The Voidborn fleet entered the system like a storm. Their ships were black and twisted, built from living metal that pulsed with strange light. They fired streams of dark energy that tore through asteroids and debris. Every beam seemed to eat the light around it. Renar's crew watched in silence. They expected to see the Valiant destroyed as so many others had been. But instead, the human ship remained still for a moment. And then it struck. A line of bright light burst from the Valiant's main cannon. It cut through the void like a blade, slicing the lead Voidborn ship in half. The explosion lit up the entire field. Before the shockwave faded, the Valiant fired again. 3 more enemy ships vanished in flashes of blue fire. The bridge of the Silver Crest was filled with stunned silence. None of them had ever seen power like this. The Voidborn responded with full fury. Hundreds of beams of dark energy struck the Valiant, but its shields glowed like a sun. The blasts vanished against the barrier as if absorbed by light itself. Renar whispered, "Impossible." Varen's hands trembled as he read the data. "Their shields are holding at full strength. They are using an energy form I cannot identify." Mira's voice came over the fleet channel. "Stay back. We are clearing the path." The Valiant launched smaller craft that moved faster than light. They darted between enemy ships, leaving trails of fire. Each craft released bursts of energy that tore through the enemy formations. The Voidborn tried to surround them, but every move they made was countered with precision. Renar could not look away. It was as if the humans had returned as gods of war. Every shot, every movement was perfect. The Allied ships could only watch as the tide turned. For the first time, the Voidborn were not advancing. They were falling back. After an hour of relentless combat, the last of the Voidborn ships tried to flee. The Valiant's main gun fired one last time, and a wave of light swept across the field. When the glow faded, nothing remained of the enemy. The space was silent again. Renar stared at the screen, unable to speak. The Valiant's engines cooled, and its hull lights dimmed. The human ship had just destroyed an entire Voidborn fleet. Varen finally spoke. "Sir, I cannot believe it. They fought the Voidborn alone, and won." Renar nodded slowly. "Now I understand why the legends called them unstoppable." A new transmission came from Captain Mira. Her face appeared on the screen, calm as before. "The field is clear. We have destroyed the enemy fleet. Your wounded are safe aboard our ship. You may begin repairs. We will remain here until you are ready to move." Renar bowed his head slightly. "Captain Mira, you have saved us." "We owe you everything." She shook her head. "You owe us nothing, Captain. We do not fight for debt or reward. We fight because someone must stand when all others fall." Her words spread through every ship in the Allied fleet. The fear that had ruled them for months began to fade. Crews who had lost their will to live now began working again. The repair teams moved with energy they had not felt in weeks. Renar looked out at the stars. "Maybe hope has returned to the galaxy," he said softly. Varen smiled for the first time in many days, and it came in the form of humans. But even as the fleet began to recover, the sensors picked up something strange. A faint signal was repeating again from the darkness beyond the system. It was the same human code that had called them before, but now it carried new data. The communication officer frowned. "Captain, this message is coming from far beyond the range of our charts. It is another human signal, much stronger than the one we followed earlier." Renner turned to Varen. Do you think there are more of them? Before Varen could answer, Captain Mira sent a message directly to Renar's ship. Her voice was lower now, almost serious. Captain Renar, we need to talk. That signal is not from us. We believe it is a trap. Renar felt a chill run through him. A trap? From who? Mira replied, from those who destroyed the first human colonies long ago. We call them the architects of the void. They created the Voidborn. And if that signal is real, it means they have awakened again. Renar stared at the screen in silence. The victory they had just earned might only be the beginning of something far worse. The stars that had seemed peaceful now felt dangerous once more. The Valiant's engines began to hum again, filling the space with a low vibration. Captain Mira's final words echoed through the fleet channel. Hold your position and prepare for contact. The next battle will decide the fate of more than just your worlds. The architects have returned, and humanity intends to finish what they started. Renner stood tall on the bridge of the Silver Crest. The fear that once filled him was gone. The humans had returned to the stars, and they were not alone. The galaxy had found its defenders again. As the faint light of distant stars shone through the cracks of broken ships, Renar. The dark emptiness of space stretched endlessly as the surviving Allied fleet hovered near the Valiant. Ships floated in cautious formation, their engines weak and their hulls battered. The victory against the Voidborn fleet had given them a fleeting sense of relief, yet the warning from Captain Mira still echoed in every mind. Another threat was out there, beyond the stars. The signal from the far reaches of the galaxy had not been ignored. Captain Renar stood on the bridge of the Silver Crest, his gaze fixed on the view screen. The vast blackness beyond the fleet seemed heavier than before, as if space itself was holding its breath. The faint signal flickered once more in the sensors. It was a repeating pulse of energy, ancient and coded, stronger than the one that had drawn the Valiant to them. Renar felt an uneasy chill run through him. This reading, said Varen, leaning over the console, is massive. It is much larger than the first signal. So whatever it is not just a ship. It is something enormous. Renar clenched his hands. Could it be another human vessel? Varen shook his head. No, Captain. The Valiant is the only one we know of. This is different. The communication officer's fingers flew across the console. Captain, the energy is moving at an impossible speed. It is heading toward us from beyond charted space. It is massive, and it is coming now. Renar straightened and turned to the bridge crew. Alert all ships, prepare shields, and ready all weapons. If this is an enemy, we need to be ready. The crew obeyed quickly. Though their numbers were small, their courage had returned. The Valiant's presence had inspired them. Even the weakest ships moved with determination, standing ready to defend themselves. Captain Mira's voice came over the fleet channel. Allied fleet, do not fire unless fired upon. This is not an ordinary fleet. This is the first contact with the Architect's machines. Stand ready, but remain calm. Renar swallowed and nodded. Understood, Captain Mira. Everyone, prepare for anything. The sensors quivered as the massive object approached. At first, it was only a faint glimmer against the stars, like a distant comet. Then, gradually, the shape became clear. It was a colossal warship, dark and jagged, bristling with weapons that defied understanding. Its hull seemed alive, covered with lines that pulsed with energy, moving like veins. Space itself seemed to bend around it, creating distortions that made the ship appear larger than possible. Varen's voice was tense. Sir, this is unlike anything I have ever seen. The size alone is frightening. It is bigger than a planet's station. Renar nodded slowly. It is the Architect's warship. The legends called them builders of destruction. They created the Voidborn and every weapon in the galaxy.
Ow.
If this ship is here, it means war is about to return. The Valiant moved forward calmly. Its hull glowed brighter than the stars, as if the ship carried a sun inside. Captain Mira's image appeared on the fleet channel again. Allied fleet, you are to follow my lead. I will engage this ship directly. You will stay behind our shields. We will not retreat, and we will not surrender. Renar's heart raced. Valiant alone would confront a machine of unimaginable power. The crew of the Silver Crest could only watch as the massive human ship slowly approached the jagged silhouette of the enemy. Suddenly, the Architect's warship fired. Streams of dark energy erupted from its hull, cutting across space like rivers of shadow. The first beam struck the Valiant's shields. The energy roared, shaking the human ship but not breaking it. Sparks of blue light danced across the surface, absorbing the impact. Renair could feel the tension on the bridge. How? How is it holding? Varen whispered. Human technology, Renair said, his voice low. It is beyond our understanding. The Valiant fired in return. Beams of brilliant blue light shot forward with precision, striking the enemy ship's armor. Explosions rippled across its surface, but the Architect's warship did not falter. Instead, it shifted its formation, sending smaller weapons to intercept the incoming fire. Captain, said the officer at the sensor station, the enemy ship is not just a machine. It is calculating. It adapts. Every time the Valiant hits it, the ship changes. It is learning. Renair took a deep breath. Then our humans are fighting a mind as well as a machine. They are humanity at its best. The battle raged across the empty void. The Valiant moved with impossible speed, dodging enormous beams while firing back with deadly accuracy. Its weapons tore through the enemy's defenses, leaving glowing scars across the dark hull. Smaller vessels from the Valiant's hangars darted through the field, striking with precision and disappearing before the enemy could respond. For the Allied fleet, the sight was breathtaking. They had witnessed human courage before, but this was beyond any story they had ever heard. A single ship, unshakable and relentless, fighting a machine built to destroy entire fleets. Renner spoke to Varen quietly. This is what legends were meant to describe. It says humanity as the galaxy has never truly seen. Ours passed as the duel continued. The Valiant absorbed blow after blow, retaliating with strength that seemed impossible. Its engines glowed like molten metal, and its weapons carved paths of destruction through the void. The enemy ship responded with calculated attacks, sending waves of energy that threatened to tear the fleet apart. Then, as if sensing the humans' resolve, the Architect's warship changed tactics. It split its energy beams, sending one toward the Valiant and another toward the Allied fleet. Panic spread among the surviving ships. They could not withstand this level of power. Captain Mir's voice rang out clearly across the comms. Allied fleet, move behind me. Focus your shields on the beams. I will handle the rest. Ranner barked orders. Silver Crest and other ships formed a defensive line behind the human ship, directing all energy to their shields. The beams hit them with force, shaking every hull. But no ship was destroyed. The Valiant turned to face the Architect's ship head-on. It unleashed a concentrated volley of energy that split the enemy's shields in one strike. Sparks and plasma erupted from the dark armor as the human ship moved with unmatched precision. Every shot was calculated, every movement flawless. Renair could not contain his awe. They are unstoppable, he whispered. Varen's eyes widened and fearless. The Valiant shows no hesitation, no fear, even now, against impossible odds. The enemy ship retaliated with a massive pulse, aiming directly at the Valiant's core. For a moment, it seemed the human ship might fall, but the shields flared brighter than the stars. Energy rippled across the hull, absorbing the strike and redirecting it in a deadly counterattack. Explosions lit the void as sections of the Architect's warship began to collapse under the relentless assault. Beams of blue fire tore across its surface, each hit precise and deadly. Smaller vessels from the Valiant's hangars struck weak points, exploding upon impact and causing massive damage. Renner and Varen could hardly believe what they were witnessing. A single ship was taking on a warship larger than any fleet and holding its ground. The power, skill, and courage of humanity were unlike anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. The battle reached a peak. The enemy ship fired continuously, its weapons tearing apart asteroids and sending debris spinning across the field. The Valiant dodged, fired, and struck with perfect timing. Every move seemed planned before it even happened. Then, with a final surge of energy, the Valiant unleashed its main cannon. A concentrated beam of blue light shot across space, striking the core of the architect's warship. The explosion was immense, lighting the stars for miles, as the dark hull cracked and shattered under the force. Energy flares and shards of metal flew in all directions as the enemy ship began to collapse. The Allied fleet held its breath as the massive silhouette of the enemy warship crumbled into fragments. One by one, the shards drifted away, leaving nothing but empty space. The valiant shields glowed brightly, unscathed, as if the human ship had barely been scratched. Renar felt his knees weaken. "They did it," he whispered. "The humans did what no one else could." Varen nodded. "We survived because of them. They brought hope back to the galaxy." Captain Mir's voice came over the fleet channel once more, calm, steady, and full of authority. "Allied fleet, the threat has been neutralized for now. You are safe, but do not mistake this for the end. We will remain here to help you rebuild and prepare for the next challenge. The Architect's forces are far from finished, and we must remain vigilant." Renar felt a new determination fill him. The Valiant had shown him that even in the darkest times, courage and skill could turn the tide. Humanity had returned to the galaxy, not as saviors seeking glory, but as protectors who fought because they must. The fleet began to regroup, repaired by human technology and inspired by their presence. Hope spread quickly among the survivors. They spoke of courage, of legends come to life, and of the return of a race thought lost. Across the bridge, Renar looked at the stars, now brighter than before, and whispered quietly, "The galaxy will never be the same." For the first time in generations, the void of space seemed alive with possibility. Humanity had arrived, and their thunder would echo across the stars forever. The shattered remnants of the Voidborn fleet drifted silently across the void, like scattered shards of dark glass. Their retreat had been swift after the Valiant's devastating attack, leaving the Allied fleet with a rare moment of quiet. Yet no one aboard the Silver Crest or the other surviving ships relaxed. The galaxy had been scarred too deeply for peace to last, and the warnings from Captain Mira were clear. The Architect's force is unseen, but always near. "We're still out there," Captain Renar stood on the bridge, watching as the Valiant orbited around the remaining ships, its massive hull glowing softly in the darkness. The humans were not idle. They repaired their own damage, tended to the wounded, and scanned the surrounding sectors for threats. Every movement was precise and deliberate, a mixture of experience and discipline honed over generations. Varen, standing next to Renar, spoke quietly. "Sir, the Valiant is preparing something. The energy output is increasing, and the smaller ships in its hangars are arming themselves. It feels like they expect another attack soon." Renar nodded. "That is exactly what I was thinking. The Voidborn may have fled, but this is only a pause. Their masters, the Architects, will not let this go unanswered." The bridge was tense. Even though the humans had destroyed the immediate threat, the survivors of the Allied fleet felt the weight of what lay ahead. Every crew member understood that the Valiant's presence alone had not ended the war. It had only shown them that victory was possible. "Captain," the communication officer said, breaking the silence, "we are receiving a new transmission from the Valiant. It is direct, not through the fleet channel." Renar tapped the console. Captain Mira's face appeared on the screen, calm and steady as always. Her piercing eyes seemed to look directly at him, and her voice carried authority and reassurance. "Captain Renar," she said, "we are about to engage a larger force. The Architects have sent reinforcements. These ships are not Voidborn. They are engineered constructs designed to destroy all organic life. They will not show mercy, and they will not negotiate. We must strike first and strike hard." Renar felt the weight of her words. "How many ships are coming?" "Hundreds," she replied, "and they will arrive in minutes. You must ready your fleet for a coordinated attack. Follow our lead and trust in the strategy." Renar turned to Varen. "Prepare all ships for battle. Reinforce shields, distribute ammunition, and ready engines. We may be fewer in number, but we will fight." The crew worked quickly, inspired by the presence of the Valiant. Repairs that had taken hours were completed in minutes. The wounded were moved to human med bays where healing machines glowed softly, knitting flesh and restoring strength. The morale of the Allied fleet rose, placing the despair that had ruled them for weeks. Through the sensor array, the incoming fleet was visible. Massive ships emerged from beyond the edge of the system, sleek and black, their hulls pulsing with a strange blue energy. Unlike the Voidborn, these ships were coordinated, each movement precise, as if controlled by a single mind. Renar swallowed hard. They are too organized. This is no ordinary fleet. Captain Myra, how should we proceed? Captain Renair, Mira's voice was calm. We will form a spearhead. The Valiant will lead. Your ships will follow in formation, providing support and covering our flanks. Target their weak points and maintain a tight formation. Trust in our timing. Renar nodded and addressed his crew. You have seen what humans can do. Follow their lead. Fight with courage, fight with intelligence, and fight for every world that still lives. This is our chance to survive, to prove that life in the galaxy will not be crushed. The ships moved into position. The Valiant led the fleet like a massive spear, cutting through darkness. Smaller human ships flitted around it, faster than anything the Allied fleet had ever seen. The human warship Aurora glided silently through the black expanse of space. Every star seemed to shine brighter now that hope had returned to the galaxy. The Drakari, once feared and unstoppable, were losing their grip. Their fleets had been scattered, their planets liberated, and their commanders bewildered. Yet, the humans knew the battle was not over. One final push was needed to ensure the Drakari would never threaten the innocent again. Lieutenant Mara stood at the command deck, her hands firm on the rail. Her eyes scanned the holographic displays that showed the positions of every ship in the sector. The Drakari command center loomed ahead, a massive fortress surrounded by dozens of warships. This was where the humans had to strike. If they failed, the sacrifices of the past weeks would be in vain. If they succeeded, a new chapter would begin for the galaxy, Admiral Kieran. The leader of the Aurora walked past her with steady steps. His uniform was marked with medals earned through courage and skill. He stopped and looked at Mara with a calm but firm expression. This is the moment we have trained for. The galaxy watches us. Every move we make now must be precise. Mara nodded. The fleet is ready. The fighters are in position, and our systems are fully operational. I believe we can do this. Kieran gave a small smile. I know we can. Humans have always faced impossible odds and found a way through. Today is no different. The Aurora's engines hummed as it led the fleet toward the Drakari fortress. Human fighter squads darted around the warship, sleek and fast. Every pilot knew the stakes. They were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for every species the Drakari had oppressed as the humans approached. The Drakari commander Rian prepared his own fleet. He had faced many enemies before, but the humans were different. They were not predictable. They were not afraid. They fought with creativity and courage. Rian knew that to crush them, he had to strike quickly and decisively. The first exchange of fire lit the darkness of space. Energy beams cut through the void, striking the shields of Drakari warships. The Aurora's advanced targeting systems directed precise attacks. One by one, enemy ships were disabled, drifting silently like fallen giants. Human fighters swooped in to finish what the Aurora started, voiding enemy fire with agility no alien pilot could match. Mara's heart raced as she coordinated the fighters. Alpha Squadron hit the left flank. Beta Squadron disabled their supply lines. Gamma, follow my lead and protect the Aurora. Her voice was calm, but her mind was sharp and alert. Every second mattered. The Drakari launched counterattacks, sending waves of drones and assault ships. Their energy weapons tore through space, aiming to overwhelm the human fleet. Yet, the humans responded with strategy and precision. They used the terrain of asteroids and nebulae to hide and strike from unexpected angles. Every move was calculated. Every action counted. Amid the chaos, Admiral Kieran activated the Aurora's secret weapon, a device that could disrupt the Drakari command signals. The humans had studied the enemy for years, learning their weaknesses. This device was the final advantage they had been waiting for. As it powered up, Rian's communications began to falter. Orders were delayed, signals were confused, and the Drakari fleet descended into chaos. Mara saw the opportunity. All units, focus on the command center. We take out the core, and their fleet will crumble. The human fighters responded immediately. They dodged beams of energy, weaved through enemy formations, and pressed toward the Drakari fortress. Every pilot moved with courage and determination. The galaxy held its breath as humans, small in number, faced an empire that had crushed countless worlds. Inside the Drakari command center, Rian's control room was filled with tension. Screens showed explosions, drifting ships, and the relentless advance of humans. Rian slammed his clawed hands on the console. He could not understand how a species so weak, so small, could fight with such power. Every tactic he had used against other civilizations failed against humans. On the Aurora, Admiral Kieran spoke to the fleet. Stay focused. Precision and courage are our strengths. Today, we show the galaxy what humans can do. The Aurora fired its main cannons, energy streams converging on the Drakari fortress. Explosions rocked the alien structures, lighting the void with flashes of fire and sparks. Human fighters followed, disabling every defense system and clearing the path for the Aurora. The fortress shook under the relentless assault. Mara watched as the final doors of the command center were breached. The core is exposed. This is it, she said, her voice steady. A squad of elite human pilots entered the fortress, moving with coordination and bravery that amazed even the aliens. They navigated corridors filled with traps, disabling weapons and securing control nodes. Every step was dangerous, but every step brought them closer to victory. Rian confronted them in the main chamber. His presence was intimidating, larger than any human, with strength and weapons designed to dominate. Yet he saw no fear in the human's eyes. Mara, leading the squad, raised her blaster and stepped forward. "Your reign of terror ends today," she said firmly. Rian laughed, a sound filled with disbelief. "You are only a few. You cannot win," Mara smiled calmly. "We are never just a few when we fight for what is right. Courage is stronger than fear. Unity is stronger than numbers. And humanity is stronger than you will ever imagine." The final confrontation was fierce, but quick. The humans moved with precision, outsmarting Rian and using the fortress against him. His forces were disabled, and the command core was secured. The Aurora transmitted a message across the galaxy. The Drakari Empire had been defeated. The news spread like wildfire. Planets that had lived under fear for centuries celebrated. The oppressed cheered as humans liberated their homes. The once mighty Drakari fleet retreated in disarray, their empire crumbling before their eyes. Admiral Kieran stood on the Aurora's deck watching the stars. "We have done it," he said softly. "The galaxy can breathe again." Mara joined him, looking at the liberated planets in the distance. "We did not just win a battle, we gave hope. We proved that no matter how dark the universe seems, courage and unity can shine brighter than any star." The human fleet returned to Earth, carrying heroes who had faced impossible odds. Stories of bravery, clever tactics, and unyielding spirit filled every corner of human space. Across the galaxy, species began to rebuild, inspired by humans who had dared to stand when everyone else had surrendered. In the years that followed, humans became known as the guardians of hope. They were respected not for size or strength, but for their courage, intelligence, and determination. Every human, from the smallest pilot to the most brilliant strategist, carried the lesson that even the weakest could rise to greatness when guided by purpose and unity. On the Aurora, Mara and Kieran watched as the stars stretched endlessly before them. They knew the galaxy would always face threats, but they also knew that humanity would always rise to meet them. The despair that had once filled the stars was gone. In its place was hope, courage, and the shining light of a species that had proven itself against impossible odds. Humanity had stood tall, and the galaxy would never forget it.